My mom showed up at my house and casually said, "Pack your things. Your brother's family needs this house more than you do." I closed the door, turned on the intercom, and calmly said, "This is my home. If you come back again without permission, I'll call the police." Hello everyone. My name is Rachel Bennett. I'm 36 years old, and my mother tried to evict me from a house she didn't own. She stood on my front porch, smiled as though she were doing me a favor, then casually said, "Pack your things. Your brother's children need this house more than you do." I looked at her, then at my brother. His wife stood beside him, holding their youngest child. A moving truck waited at the curb. Apparently, everyone except me believed I was moving out that morning. I quietly stepped back inside, closed the front door, pressed the intercom button, and calmly said, "This is private property. If any of you try to enter this house without my permission, the next people you'll be speaking to will be police officers." Silence, absolute silence. Looking back, that wasn't really the beginning. It started nearly 15 years earlier. I was the younger of two children. My brother Jason was 4 years older. Growing up, everything seemed to revolve around him. If Jason wanted a new car, Dad found a way. If Jason wanted help paying rent, Mom wrote a check. Whenever I accomplished something, my parents smiled proudly, then immediately reminded me that Jason needed more help. They always had the same explanation. "You're responsible. Your brother just needs a little more support." That little more support lasted most of our adult lives. After college, I became a financial analyst. The hours were long. The work was demanding, but I loved it. Every paycheck had a purpose: emergency savings, retirement, a future home. For nearly 12 years, I lived below my means, skipped expensive vacations, drove the same reliable sedan, cooked at home, worked overtime. Eventually, I had enough for a down payment. The day I signed the closing papers, I cried, not because the house was enormous. It wasn't. 3 bedrooms, a small office, a cozy backyard. It was simply mine. Every brick represented years of sacrifice. When I invited my parents over, Mom smiled politely. "It's nice." Dad nodded. "You've done well." Then Jason walked through the living room. This place would be perfect for the kids. Everyone laughed. I laughed too, because I thought he was joking. 6 months later, Jason lost his house, not because of an illness, not because of an accident. He and his wife had borrowed heavily to renovate beyond their budget. When interest rates rose, the payments became impossible. They ignored advice, missed payments. Eventually, the house was foreclosed. I genuinely felt sorry for them. 3 children were involved. I helped where I could. I paid for groceries several times, bought school supplies, even helped Jason prepare a new resume. But one thing I never offered was my home, because no one asked, at least, not at first. One Sunday dinner, Mom casually said, "You've got all that extra space." I looked up. "So, Jason's family could stay with you for a little while." I smiled politely. "I don't think that's a good idea." Dad frowned. "Why not?" "Because I worked very hard for this house, and I enjoy living alone." Jason rolled his eyes. "So you'd rather my kids suffer?" I answered calmly, "I'd rather we help you find another solution." Nobody liked that answer. The conversation ended awkwardly. I honestly believed everyone would move on. Instead, the phone calls started. Mom, Dad, aunts, uncles, everyone repeating the same sentence. Family helps family. Finally, I replied, "I already have. I've helped financially. I've helped with job searches, but I'm not giving away my home." Mom sighed dramatically. "You've become selfish." I quietly answered, "No, I've learned the difference between helping and surrendering my life." She hung up. For 2 weeks, everything became quiet. Then, Saturday morning arrived. I was drinking coffee when the doorbell rang. I opened the front door. Mom smiled brightly. "Good morning." Behind her stood Jason, his wife, 3 children, a moving truck, professional movers, boxes, furniture. I honestly thought I was dreaming. Mom cheerfully said, "Come on. We've already packed the truck. You'll only need a few hours to move your things." I stared at her. "What?" She laughed. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The children deserve bedrooms." Jason was already pointing toward my garage. "We'll put my tools in there." His wife quietly asked, "Which room should Emma have?" Nobody, not one single person, had asked whether they could move in. They had simply decided. I slowly stepped outside, closed the front door behind me, looked at every one of them, then calmly said, "No." Mom smiled impatiently. "Rachel, don't embarrass us." I already answered. Jason stepped forward. "You don't have children." "We do." I looked directly at him. "Then your responsibility is finding them a home, not taking mine." Mom suddenly reached for the front doorknob. Instinctively, I stepped back inside, locked the door, then switched on the intercom. My voice echoed through the outdoor speakers. This conversation is over. If anyone attempts to enter this property without permission, I'll immediately call the police. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Mom's face changed. Rachel, you wouldn't? I calmly answered. Try me. They remained outside another 15 minutes, arguing, knocking, demanding. Finally, the moving truck drove away. I thought it was over. It wasn't. Within 48 hours, nearly every relative I had called me. According to my parents, I'd thrown 3 innocent children onto the street. I'd refused to help. I'd chosen a house over my own family. Not one of them knew the full story. I stayed silent until Tuesday evening. My phone rang. The screen read, "Grandma." I answered immediately. Before I could say hello, she quietly whispered, "Don't defend yourself yet. I know exactly why Jason lost that house." My heart skipped. What do you mean? Grandma sighed heavily. Because your parents haven't told anyone the truth. And once the family hears it, everything changes. Sometimes, people tell half the story because the other half destroys the version they've carefully created. As Grandma prepared to reveal what really happened to my brother's house, I realized my parents hadn't just hidden the truth from the family. They'd hidden it from me too. I gripped my phone tighter. What do you mean? You know why Jason lost the house? Grandma sighed. Because I tried to stop him. I frowned. What? He asked me for money. Almost 2 years ago. I offered to help, but only if he met with a financial counselor first. He refused. My heart sank. Grandma continued. He didn't lose the house because life treated him unfairly. He lost it because he kept making one risky decision after another. I sat quietly, listening. He refinanced twice, took out loans against the house, bought expensive trucks, started a business without a budget. And every time, your parents quietly bailed him out. I closed my eyes. I never knew. They didn't want you to. Why? Because they knew you'd tell him the truth. I smiled sadly. Probably. Grandma continued. When they finally ran out of money, they decided your house would solve the problem. Those words hurt. Not because they surprised me, because they made perfect sense. 3 days later, Grandpa's old farmhouse became the gathering place for our entire family. Every aunt, every uncle, every cousin. My parents had called everyone together, apparently, to explain how selfish I'd become. When I arrived, conversations stopped. Mom folded her arms. I'm glad you finally came. Grandma quietly walked beside me. So am I. Dad immediately stood. Rachel refused to help her own brother. Before he could continue, Grandma calmly interrupted. No, she refused to surrender her home. They're not the same thing. The room became silent. Mom looked frustrated. You don't understand. Grandma looked directly at her. I understand perfectly. She slowly placed a thick folder on the dining table. Jason's expression changed. What is that? Financial records. He went pale. Grandma continued. Every loan I helped you review. Every refinancing document you asked me to read. Every budget I begged you to follow. She looked around the room. Rachel didn't make Jason lose his house. Jason did. Nobody spoke. Grandma opened the folder. She never raised her voice. She simply read the timeline. The first refinance, the second refinance, the home equity loan, the truck purchase, the failed investment, every decision, every warning, every ignored conversation. Jason buried his face in his hands. His wife quietly began crying. I told him to stop. She whispered. I really did. Grandma gently nodded. I know. Then she looked at my parents. And the two of you kept rescuing him. Dad lowered his head. We were trying to help. Grandma answered softly. No, you were protecting him from the consequences of his own choices. She turned toward the rest of the family. Then, when you couldn't rescue him anymore, you decided Rachel should pay the price. Every relative looked shocked. One of my uncles quietly asked, You actually brought a moving truck? Mom didn't answer. Another cousin looked at Jason. You thought Rachel was just going to hand over her house. Jason stared at the floor. Mom said she'd agree. Every eye turned toward my mother. She whispered, I thought once everyone arrived, she wouldn't say no. The room fell completely silent. Grandma slowly stood. Her voice remained calm. You weren't asking. You were trying to pressure her. Dad finally looked at me. His eyes were filled with regret. I owe you an apology. You do. I told everyone you abandoned your brother. I know. The truth is, you helped him more than anyone. You paid for groceries. You helped him find work. You even paid for the children's school supplies. I nodded quietly. I never stopped caring. I just wouldn't give away my home. My youngest niece suddenly walked over to me. She hugged me tightly. I didn't want your house. I just wanted everyone to stop yelling. I knelt beside her. I know, sweetheart, this was never your fault. Jason slowly stood. For several moments, he couldn't speak. Finally, he looked directly at me. I kept believing someone else would fix my mistakes. I'm sorry. I smiled gently. I hope you mean that. I do. I've already started meeting with a financial counselor. Grandma smiled. Good. That's the first responsible decision you've made in a long time. No one laughed, because everyone knew she was right. Mom quietly asked, will you ever forgive us? I thought carefully before answering. I can forgive you, but I won't pretend this never happened. And I won't apologize for protecting my home. Dad nodded. You shouldn't. Epilogue. Soft piano becomes warm and hopeful, carrying the quiet peace that comes when healthy boundaries replace guilt. 3 years have passed. I still live in the same little house. The flowers in the backyard bloom every spring. The office I designed has become my favorite room in the house. Jason never asked for it again. Instead, he rented a modest home his family could actually afford. He found steady work, paid off his debts one step at a time. It wasn't easy, but it was his accomplishment, not someone else's sacrifice. Mom and Dad changed slowly. They stopped treating me like the backup plan for every family crisis. Now, when they visit, they call first, they knock, and they wait to be invited inside. Grandma still smiles every time she sees my front porch. She likes to joke, the best lock on that house isn't the front door. It's the woman who finally learned to say no. She's right. My thoughts. Looking back, helping family should always come from love, not pressure, not guilt, and certainly not entitlement. A home isn't just a building. It's the result of years of hard work, sacrifice, and dreams. Protecting what you've honestly earned doesn't make you selfish. It means you've learned that kindness and healthy boundaries can exist together. Sometimes, the strongest way to help the people you love isn't by rescuing them from every consequence. It's by encouraging them to build a future they can truly stand on themselves.